Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The title for tonight's episode is unique. It's a pilgrimage. It's a pilgrimage from deceit to decency. And so, in honesty, the title was first from deceit to decency, but I don't know why the idea of a pilgrimage came into my mind. I think it's because when I chose this picture, I thought of the individual's journey. And I thought that our journeys are not just external, an external location to an external location. It is at times an external location towards an inner location towards even a relationship that is no longer bound by outside and inside. A pilgrimage is pretty much a journey towards something that the being is significantly drawn towards. And so, throughout my days in society and just pretty much certain things I've observed from this world, I've come to conclude, I have come to conclude that people are found in various moments where their response and action or decision making and behavior can either lead towards a decent movement of reality forward or a deceitful moment. For me, the concept of competition is from one angle very inspiring, but from another angle, the concept of competition is constantly pulling, those around you down because you're trying to get there first. Excuse me, guys. I'm trying to think what. In alchemy, they had this concept of transforming lead into gold, in some sense, changing the nature of how a phenomena behaves, as if the human being, through its self awareness, found itself in a position where it could consciously transform. As if many beings in nature, they have free will, but their free will is not recognizable to them. That means, like, as if the brains of certain creatures have not reached the certain sophistication of the recognition of mortality. We have reached there. Compared to all other animals on this planet, we are aware of our death. We're aware that it will end, the show will end. But for animals, they don't conceive that in some sense. Now, when one walks in nature, the relationship will either come across as individual or it will come across as collective. It will come across as individual when you're only in your subjective world. For example, like when I was younger, like when an ant or an insect would come near me, I would like kind of like use the force to get rid of it, you know? I didn't like nature when I was younger. Even though I would have profound experiences with nature, but I didn't like the discomfort that my ideology felt, like how I felt as an idea to myself in nature. I didn't like it at first. But then there came a sort of recognition that my intelligence is not just a result of my free will, it is also a result of how the universe is free as well. And so the willingness of how the planet orbits is felt by every being on this planet. That means I could, command this Earth to turn to orbit the other way, but it will orbit the way it has. So, in some sense, when we uncover nature's laws, we have to be humble enough to put our idea aside. Aristotle has this quote where he says it is the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. What is he trying to communicate there? Okay, I gotta fix these computers. So when Aristotle tells us it's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it, he's pretty much telling us don't think your thoughts, but watch them as they come and pass through you. Because my categorization as a creature in time is with certain identities and certain moments. As if, like, in, you know, on December 1791, I had a certain body, and then in what's the date today, May 30th, 2019, I have a different sort of state of biological, just objective and subjective positioning. So what I'm trying to say is that your states of your objective conditions and your subjective conditions change. And sometimes when something changes subjectively, objective reality, the way you decide in matter shifts. Sometimes when objective reality changes, it changes the way your inner reality works. And we kind of noticed this. The concept of a miracle was the external shifted the internal. The concept of, in some sense, one being the own cause of their effect is in some sense how do I say it? In one angle, the source is outside of you, the other angle, the source is within you. When the source is within you, you enter the realms of subjective freedom. In the realms of subjective freedom, you don't function as an idea, you function as a multiplicity of ideology. That means who you think you are right now, what you feel your personality is in some sense a container. The edges of the container in some sense is the ident is the personality, but what the person is a collection of various moments in their past or visualizations of the future where the attention is stuck in. What that means is when something leaves one's reality, you notice it for a couple days. You notice it for some time after. But you also notice that the voids that life, in some sense, brings, it also fills. So the subjective and objective reality, I think of it this way: my free will, materialistically, it's not that free. Aside from me moving this body, nature is doing its thing. aside from my maintenance of just this biological uh, existence, even this biological existence is being directed with a sort of sophisticated subjective experience. So, what I'm trying to say now, let's kind of bring this back to why I wanted to talk about deceit and decency. Because I find that if you are someone who cares about how the world behaves when you're around it, or when you walk in the eyes of the world, how the world behaves, how the world sees you, you either feel you're hit too hard by the world, you either take your suffering personally, and you have this sort of subconscious hatred for anything that didn't make your life easier. And I'm saying this in a general way. Specifically, I'm saying general because the way the subconscious moves is that what you can't confront enters the subconscious. My personal request is that after billions of years, we can consciously evolve. Our free will has a sort of value in how it can apply itself to bring about change. Now, decency means you keep all phenomena in accordance with one reality. Because if in mystical practice, anytime you want to honestly explore your mind, I'm telling you, it's not per se like a treasure that needs to be dug. It's not something you can go after. The mind is not a tangible phenomena. It's something that's here. Like your mind is being your moment. Okay, so this moment is oscillating between existence and non-existence, thus constantly generating identification with the world. So let's take it in this way that you're a moment of being, and in your waking life, the moment you're awake, you're constantly, your system of intelligence as the moment is identifying with phenomena. Now you sleep, kind of the world blinks, and then you wake up, and you see a new moment of identification occurs. You can't enter a new environment without having a new approach, thus suggesting in any moment of your life when change is obvious, know that the self is in some sense being resurrected. The moments that I regret in my life are moments when there was a millisecond of an intuitive awareness of doing the decent thing, yet a sort of laziness or an emotional justification has allowed deceit to thrive over decency. And so there's this ancient Cherokee story where there's this grandfather and his grandson comes to the grandfather while the grandfather is about to talk to all the chiefs from the different tribes. And the grandpa is a sort of main chief himself. And so the grandson comes and says, "Grandpa, tell me a story." And this grandfather, this chief, in some sense, finds himself in front of all the other chiefs, and all the other chiefs kind of like examining, testing him, kind of like judging him. What kind of story is he going to tell his grandson? Kind of judging his wisdom, judging the awareness of his being. So the grandfather kind of kneels to get to the same height as the grandson in front of all the other chieftains of the other tribes. And he says, "My dear grandson, there are two wolves inside you." And the grandson's like, "What the fuck?" No, the grandson's like, "What do you mean, Grandpa?" And so what the grandfather says is that, what the chief says, is that there are two wolves. There is an urge to move chaotically, and there is a urge to move in an ordered way. And in some sense, these wolves, that one represent peace, the other represents a sort of, um, kind of endless war. The grandfather tells the grandson these two wolves are fighting. And so the grandson suddenly gets serious, as if in his past life he was a chief as well, and looks at the grandfather and says, "Which wolf wins, grandfather?" And the grandfather looks at the grandson and says, "The one you feed." So, in some sense, your decisions create conscious identifications that echo in your attention based on your ideals and the conditions you have accepted to become the measures of your life. For me, I have been humbled by life in various moments. There have been moments where I was asked for something and I did not give a helping hand. And then somebody came and asked, the same person asked somebody else beside me, and that person gave a helping hand. And I wondered in my own nature, why did I not share what I had? And I'll tell you, because the ego is so hilarious that a thought of you can become more valuable than anything around you. And that's, in some sense, both the glory and the folly of love. That love had a sort of blindness in it, but that blindness was worth the sacrifice of what was seen to come. And what that means is that we as creatures, honestly, we're creatures of risk, incredible risk. There is a sort of innate risk management built in our evolutionary system of just intelligence. It's fascinating. Sometimes how words appear, how the moment appears for me, it seems like just the melody has been written before, the music sheet has been placed in front of Beethoven, and Beethoven just needs to play it. In some sense, the fingers begin moving with the certainty of the structure that they are in, but also they evolve through the uncertainty as well. Now, the creature wakes up, the human being wakes up, the Homo sapien acknowledges the world in front of it. It goes on throughout the day feeling as if it's been given its own chunk of the cake. Every person who is alive, in some sense, has been given the availability of a lifetime. You have been given your own universe. That's the uniqueness of human existence. That you are in some sense in your own private world. And then how you allow this private world's momentum to in some sense become the external, there's two ways. Either you gotta pass the veil of thoughts through incredible fullness. You go to the extremeness of infinite multidimensionality. So pretty much one way to enlightenment is the acceptance of the infinite. And another way towards this enlightened kind of higher state of being is in some sense the acceptance of the empty. And any moment you concentrate on how full life is or how empty life is, the pattern of your identity shifts. Concentration has an incredible ability. Whatever your attention goes upon, it's like a tunnel, an inner tunnel is occurring over that object. As if I look at, for example, let's say a cup right now in front of me. I visualize suddenly this cup filled with like water. Then suddenly in that water, my mind can just see it like the bottom of an ancient prehistoric ocean. In this tiny cup. Like the mind can, in some sense, animate. It can animate because thoughts are kept in a sort of active mode.